The Miller inheritance. The lighter clicked open in Marcus's hands as the family trust burned, ashes rising into the midnight air. Chloe was still sobbing in the basement. Leo's knuckles were wrapped in bloody tape, and none of them had the diamonds. 13 hours earlier, the rain had been falling hard on Manhattan. Marcus stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of his apartment, holding a white ceramic mug with "World's Best CEO" printed in gold letters. The gray silk robe hung on his shoulders like a second skin, thin, barely protecting anything. Rain drummed against the glass in a rhythm that matched his clenched jaw. His eyes were tired, the kind of tired that no amount of sleep could fix. He turned from the window and walked to a glass-topped desk. The manila envelope was there, thick and official, labeled "Family Trust, Final Version." The gold lettering seemed to mock him. He picked it up. Paper rustled in his hands, the sound of liquid clicking as he sipped his coffee. The coffee was cold now. "It's never enough, is it?" His own voice surprised him, small and whispering in the empty apartment. Inside the envelope, he found the document. Clause 4.2 was highlighted in neon yellow. Marcus Miller shall oversee the rehabilitation and monthly allowance of Leo Miller. His fingers tightened on the paper. The edge crumpled under pressure. The sound was thin, almost like tearing. But it was the name that made him pull out the yellow highlighter. The name Leo was circled in red ink multiple times, over and over, as if repetition could make the responsibility disappear. His phone vibrated on the glass desk. The screen lit up with a photo of an elderly woman, his mother. The text read, "Make sure your brother doesn't ruin the dinner tonight. He's your responsibility." Marcus's jaw began to pulse. He ground his teeth so hard he thought they might crack. He picked up the phone and slammed it face down on the desk with enough force to make the glass shudder. Then he grabbed his fountain pen, the expensive black one, the one that cost more than most people's weekly salary, and began signing the documents. The strokes were aggressive, jagged, nothing like the controlled signature he used for corporate contracts. The nib scratched harshly against paper. Ink splatters bloomed across the signature line like tiny wounds. 1 hour later, in a gritty boxing gym in Brooklyn, Leo was battering a heavy leather punching bag. His knuckles were wrapped in stained white tape. The fabric was soaked through with sweat. His body was drenched in sweat. Every muscle in his shoulders and back contracted with each punch. The rhythm was violent and perfect. Thud, thud, thud. Each impact sent small clouds of dust from the bag. His breathing came in ragged gasps that echoed off the concrete walls. A shaft of light from a high window cut across the gym floor, and dust motes danced through it like tiny ghosts. Then the gym manager appeared. The man was wearing a greasy tracksuit and holding a legal notice. His hands shook as he approached. Leo was still mid-punch when he stopped, his chest heaving. The manager's nervousness was palpable, a twitchy energy that made the space between them feel dangerous. "Leo," the manager said, his voice apologetic and small. "Your brother's lawyers called. They're pulling the sponsorship for this place." The notice had the Miller family crest at the top. Leo could see it even from a distance, the ornate, pretentious crest that meant money and control and everything he hated. Leo ripped the notice from the manager's hand. He crumpled it into a tight ball with one fist, the paper making a sound like breaking bones. He threw it at the manager's chest. The man flinched. "He wants me in a suit, not a ring," Leo said, his voice a growl. "Tell him to go to hell." But the manager didn't leave. He couldn't, because a tall, muscular man in a suit had stepped out from the shadows of the gym. The man's name was irrelevant. What mattered was the silver ring on his hand and the way he blocked Leo's path to the locker room. There was a contrast so stark, it was almost comical. Leo's half-naked, sweaty body covered in the evidence of his training, and the thug's neat suit untouched and pristine. The manager scurried away, his footsteps quick and afraid. "Your brother sent me to ensure you show up for dinner tonight," the thug said. His voice was monotone, rehearsed, clean. Leo didn't wait. He didn't calculate angles or think about consequences. He lunged forward, driving his forehead into the thug's nose with all the explosive force of a man who had nothing left to lose. The sound was sickening. The crunch of bone was unmistakable. Blood sprayed out and landed on the thug's white shirt, blooming in small, perfect circles. A single drop of blood fell onto Leo's taped fist. The thug stumbled backward, and Leo followed up with a hook to the kidney. The man's breath exploded out of him. Leo swept his leg. The thug crashed into a rack of metal weights. Weights scattered across the floor with a deafening clang that echoed through the gym. Leo stood over him, trembling with adrenaline. The white tape on his hand was now stained red. His breath came hard and fast. "Tell Marcus I'll be there," Leo said. His voice was vicious, but beneath it was something else, something hollow. But he won't like it. Across the city, in a cozy, cluttered art studio, Chloe was painting a chaotic canvas. Red and blue swirled together without direction, without meaning. She stopped mid-stroke and turned to her laptop. The screen showed her bank account. The number was negative. $4,200. Below it, in red text, "Overdue notice." She bit her lip. Her fingers twitched. She opened a velvet jewelry box. Inside was a massive diamond brooch. It caught the light and threw it back in 1,000 directions. The diamonds were perfect, flawless. Next to it was a paper tag. "Property of Miller Estate, museum loan." Chloe's hands shook as she picked it up. The velvet felt soft against her skin. She closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them again and reached for her phone. She dialed. When someone answered on the other end, she spoke in a low, panicked voice. On her table was a group photo. Marcus, Leo, and her as children, all smiling without irony. The gold frame was cracked. "I have the piece," Chloe said. "I need the cash by tonight. My brothers can't know. Leo will kill Marcus if he finds out I'm the one who stole it." She looked at the photo and deliberately turned it face down. Then she pulled out a small leather ledger from beneath the jewelry box. She opened it and found what she was looking for. A notation in her own handwriting from 2 years ago. "Frame Leo, 2022, success." There were other notations too. Other thefts, other debts. Other times she had needed cash, and Leo had needed to be blamed. "One more time, Leo," Chloe said to the empty room, her voice gone cold. "You're the screw-up. I'm the good one." By 7 o'clock that evening, the 3 siblings were sitting at an absurdly long mahogany table in the formal dining room of the Miller estate. Marcus sat at the head of the table, his posture upright and stiff. Chloe sat in the middle, her smile precise and false. Leo sat at the far end of the table, as far from his brother as the room would allow. Leo was wearing a tuxedo that was too small. His bruised knuckles were visible at the cuffs, wrapped in fresh tape. Silver cutlery gleamed in the candlelight. The candles themselves were tall and thin, their flames barely moving in the still air. Thunder flashed outside the high windows, and the room was illuminated for a moment in harsh, unforgiving light. "Thank you for joining us, Leo," Marcus said, his voice icy. "Despite your disagreement with my security." Leo picked up a crystal wine glass. The glass was expensive, the kind meant to hold something rare. He drained it in one gulp. The wine was red, and when he slammed the glass back onto the table, it made a loud thud that caused Chloe to gasp softly. A drop of red wine spilled onto the white tablecloth. It spread like blood. "Sponsorship, Marcus." Leo's voice was raspy, his throat raw. "You're trying to buy my career just to kill it. Why?" Chloe reached across the table and put her hand on Leo's arm. She looked at Marcus with eyes that were meant to convey concern, meant to convey the deep sadness of a woman caught between her brothers. Her expensive-looking watch reflected the candlelight as she moved. "Please, let's just have one dinner without the good brother, bad brother act," she said. And she actually managed to sound like she was sobbing. "Please." The rain outside intensified. It drummed harder against the windows. Marcus reached beneath the table and pulled out a black leather folder. He slid it across the mahogany surface. It stopped directly in front of Leo. The gold Miller crest on the cover seemed to glow in the candlelight. "Sign this, Leo," Marcus said. His voice was commanding, the voice of a man used to being obeyed. "It's an admission of the 2022 theft. Do it, and I'll pay off your gym debts. Refuse, and you're in a cell by midnight." Leo looked at the folder. He did not open it. He simply sat and stared at it as if it might bite him. And then he stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. He ran. The hallway was dark, lit only by the lightning flashes from the storm outside. Portraits of Miller ancestors lined the walls, stern faces frozen in oil paint, condemning him with painted eyes. Leo had discarded his tuxedo jacket somewhere behind him. He was carrying a backpack he had hidden earlier before the dinner began. His bare feet were nearly silent on the carpet as he ran. A flash of lightning illuminated the high windows along the hallway. The thunder came almost immediately. Then a second guard stepped out of the library doors. This one was called Thug 2. He didn't say a word. He simply raised a heavy wooden baton and swung it with lethal force. The baton whistled through the air and hit a vase on a pedestal. The vase exploded into white porcelain pieces that scattered across the floor like snow. Leo ducked under the next swing and drove his shoulder into the guard's midsection. They both crashed through the library doors. Glass shattered. The guard fell backward, and Leo fell on top of him. They both landed hard on a Persian rug, the impact knocking the wind out of both men. For a moment, neither moved. Then Leo scrambled forward. He grabbed a heavy brass bookend from a nearby table. The eagle-shaped one, a piece of art that probably cost more than the gym he worked in. He raised it over his head and slammed it down. The sound was a dull thud, not like in movies, just a terrible final sound. The guard's body went limp. Leo stood up, his chest heaving like he had run 1,000 miles. His breathing sounded like an animal's breath. Blood was on his forehead. His eyes were wild, unfocused. When he looked down at his hands, he saw them shaking. "I'm not going back to jail for something I didn't do," he said to the empty library. The words seemed to echo back at him, mocking. But he wasn't in the library alone for long. Footsteps came from the hallway. 2 sets of footsteps. Marcus and Chloe. Marcus stepped carefully over the glass. He saw Leo standing over the guard's body. He saw the blood. He saw everything he needed to see. His expression shifted to pure disgust. "Always the animal, Leo," Marcus said. His voice was as cold as winter. "You just proved every word of that confession is true." Chloe was right behind him, her hands over her mouth. But the fear was real now. Her mask had slipped slightly, revealing the panic beneath. Then Chloe did something. She stumbled, deliberately or not, and her purse fell. And when her purse fell, something glittered as it tumbled to the floor. The diamond brooch. It rolled toward Leo's feet, and Chloe screamed. The scream was high-pitched and genuine, at least in its performance. She pointed at Leo with a trembling finger. "My brooch," she screamed. "Leo, you took it from my bag when we were in the dining room. Marcus, he's doing it again." Leo looked at the brooch. Then he looked at Chloe. Then he looked at Marcus. And in that moment, understanding arrived. It came like a shock of cold water. All the pieces that had never fit suddenly aligned. Chloe had always been the one behind him. Chloe had set him up. Chloe had let their family believe the worst of him. His expression shifted from rage to something worse. Betrayal. "You," Leo said, his voice hollow and broken. "It was always you? You're the one who let them call me a thief." Marcus didn't respond to Leo. Instead, he reached into his waistband and pulled out a small handgun. It was a Glock 26, black and efficient. He pointed it at Leo's chest. His hands were steady. His face was like stone. "Stay there, Leo," Marcus said. His voice was deadly calm. "The police are coming. Family protection has its limits." The basement safe room was high-tech and cold. The walls were reinforced glass. The door was heavy steel. Everything about it spoke of security, of imprisonment. Leo was sitting on a metal bench inside the glass cell. Marcus sat outside on a designer chair, a crystal glass of scotch in his hand. The air was filled with the hum of filtration systems. Neither man spoke for a long time. Then Marcus leaned forward. His face was inches from the glass. He pulled out an old leather ledger from beneath his suit jacket, the same kind of ledger that Chloe kept. But this one was older, much older. "You think I want to be the golden child?" Marcus said. His voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of years. "I've been cleaning up Dad's embezzlements since I was 18. Every month I pay off a different victim, so we keep the name." He held the ledger up to the glass. Pages filled with numbers, debts, names crossed out, new names added, an endless list of sins paid for in silence. Leo looked up. He looked at his brother's hands. They were trembling, violently trembling. Marcus wasn't the untouchable CEO. He was a prisoner, just like Leo. His cage was just more expensive, more sophisticated, more suffocating. "You're just as trapped as I am," Leo said softly. "You just get to wear the fancy cage." Marcus didn't answer. He simply finished his scotch. But the quiet didn't last. The sound came from upstairs. Heavy footsteps, multiple sets, and then voices. New people. People who weren't guards or family members. Mercenaries. They came downstairs, and they came for Chloe first. She was being dragged by two men in tactical gear. They had sheathed knives and suppressed pistols at their sides. Her fear was no longer an act. "The brooch is fake, Chloe," one of the mercenaries said, his voice cold. "You tried to sell us glass. Where's the real one?" Chloe was sobbing. Actually sobbing. The performance was over. But Marcus stepped out of the safe room, his gun raised. He had retrieved it from somewhere. He didn't hesitate. He fired. The bullet hit the wall next to the first mercenary, leaving a hole surrounded by exploding plaster dust. The second mercenary rushed Marcus. They grappled for the gun. The mercenary drove a knee into Marcus's stomach. Marcus gasped. The wind knocked out of him. The gun fell to the floor and skittered away across the concrete. Then the mercenary threw Chloe against the glass wall of Leo's cell. The glass cracked. Leo was on the other side, and he could see the impact. He could see Chloe's body sliding down the glass, leaving a smear. He began punching the wall with all his might. Punch after punch, his bandages tore. Blood smeared on the inside of the glass. Marcus was on his knees. Blood streamed from his lip. The second mercenary held a knife to his throat. The blade pressed against his skin, drawing a thin line of blood. "Which one of you has the real diamonds?" the mercenary said. "Last chance." Chloe was trembling so hard she could barely speak. She pointed at Leo, a shaking finger that said everything. She sobbed. "He swapped it. Leo swapped it when he broke the vase. He's the thief. He always was." But then Marcus began to laugh. It was a dry, bitter laugh. A laugh that didn't belong in this basement. It was the laugh of a man who had finally reached the bottom and found it was empty. "None of us have it," he said. "We're all broke. We're just playing house with shadows." The mercenaries looked at each other, confused. "The real brooch was never in the house," Marcus continued, his hysterical laugh still cutting through the basement air. "I sold it years ago. I sold it to pay off Dad's debts. We're all fighting over a ghost." Leo stopped punching the glass. He stepped back. He took a deep breath. And then he ran at the wall. The reinforced glass had already been cracked by the impact when Chloe was thrown against it. This time, when Leo hit it with his shoulder, his full weight and his rage and his desperation behind the blow, the glass didn't just crack. It shattered. It exploded into thousands of small cubes. They rained down onto the floor, each piece catching the light and throwing it back. The sound was like 1,000 glass chimes being played all at once. Leo fell through the opening onto the basement floor. He was covered in small cuts. Two brothers who had been enemies only hours before. Then they turned together. They walked toward the stairs in sync, their footsteps echoing. Behind them, Chloe was still huddled in the corner of the basement. They didn't look back. They didn't offer a hand. The estate gates were wrought iron and heavy. The rain had stopped. The moon was out, casting everything in silver light. The puddles on the ground reflected the sky perfectly. Marcus and Leo stood at the gates. Marcus held a small lighter. He pulled a single document from his pocket. It was the family trust. The lighter clicked open. "The golden child just resigned," Marcus said. There was something almost light in his voice, almost like relief. The corner of the document caught fire. The flames were orange and hungry. They climbed up the page, consuming the Miller name, burning away the responsibilities, destroying the obligations that had defined both of them. They watched the paper burn. The ashes floated away into the night air, rising and disappearing. Leo pulled out his phone. He had taken a selfie earlier. Both of them were visible in the photo, bloody and bruised and smiling. He tapped the screen and sent a text message. It went to his mother. The photo was attached. The caption read, "We're out. Figure out the brooch yourself." The scapegoat just found a new hobby, Leo said. Family arson. They began walking in opposite directions down the wet driveway. Marcus tossed the expensive lighter into the bushes. Leo ripped the tape off his knuckles. The white fabric came away stained red. The high, dark towers of the estate shrunk in the distance behind them. The gravel crunched beneath their feet for a moment. Then their footsteps faded. One of them disappeared into the darkness on the right side of the driveway. The other moved toward the left. On the ground between them, a piece of bloody hand wrap lay discarded. It had a gold cufflink tangled in it. The light of a passing car hit it once, illuminating the metal in a final moment of brightness. Then total darkness.